So there's something happening with XRP right now that many people are discussing. I would say that overall, XRP still looks extremely good. I'm still holding, I'm still accumulating as much as I can, but there's been a little bit of a hatred campaign for about a few days right now. And part of it was because apparently the XRP ledger halted yesterday at height 93.9 million. For at that point 14 minutes thus far. Steady lads, all hands on deck. And the reason I didn't cover it instantly was because very quickly afterwards, I believe in about an hour or so, everything basically fixed itself again. But the funny thing was, at the time when things were happening, the fear was rampantly spreading, not necessarily by XRP community members themselves, mostly by Bitcoin people. And now trust me when I say that I'm extremely bullish on Bitcoin because I see the probability of a coin like Bitcoin failing as smallest out of the entire crypto space. But that doesn't mean I think Bitcoin is the best investment, nor that it has no flaws. There's inherently flaws with any coin, but to quickly get back to it, Solana, for example, just celebrated a milestone of 1 year without any outages, but do you guys remember that Bitcoin throughout time actually has also had multiple issues? For example, about a year ago, a Bitcoin block took around 1 hour and 13 minutes, and he gives multiple different examples of previous times where, again, it took 1 or multiple hours for Bitcoin to find a block. These days are ChatGPT though, so there might be something wrong. Point being, right now people like to spread hatred, they like to spread misinformation or FUD, when in reality, Solana went down multiple times in a month previously, and right now it's been praised as one of the best cryptocurrencies out there. ChatGPT was down today. I mean, just to put it into perspective, things can have issues. It's not that big a deal, and I'm not so sure why people are making it out to be the biggest deal ever. Now, the CTO of Ripple had some interesting words to say. The network is now recovering. We don't know exactly what caused the issue yet. Super preliminary observation, though, is that it looked like consensus was running, but validations were not being published, causing the network to drift apart. Validator operators manually intervened to choose sane starting point after the last ledger that anyone could have seen as fully validated, and began publishing validations from there. This can be done without coordination, but it's always better to get second and third opinions. Once servers started seeing a few validators from a few sources, they were able to build enough consensus to pull the network over to a coordinated ledger stream after the last ledger the network managed to validate. This is all preliminary and might turn out to be wrong. Very few UNL operators actually made any changes, as far as I can tell. So it's possible the network spontaneously recovered. I'm not sure yet. Update, it looks like, as far as we could tell, only one validator operator manually intervened. It's still not entirely clear if that solved the problem or the network self-healed. And some people might be asking, so does that mean that for that hour people lost their money or something like that? Abby said, does this cause any assets on the XRP to be lost? If they were in the middle of a transaction when the halt occurred, for example. And David says, no, it just caused ledgers not to be seen as trusted for about an hour. The servers knew the network wasn't working correctly and so did not report any ledgers as trusted during the incident. So the core principle here being everything continues on, but it's quote unquote not confirmed. And so somebody else was asking, hey, did any ledgers then go missing during this trick, as if it was something on purpose meant to hide shady business, for example? And David responded saying, tentative ledgers that were produced during the incident were discarded, as is normal, as always happens, right? But no ledgers that received majority validation were lost or affected in any way. And the point there being, people will try to do bad things all the time. The beautiful thing about blockchain is that everything is public though. Then in this case, if something was in the process of being worked out, but again, either not fully completed or confirmable, let's call it, or fraudulent to some extent, it would just get discarded. But again, it's only about the confirmations that count, which again, you can see. And so the ones that received majority validation, the ones that count, were not lost or affected in any way. Everything just continued on. It just took some time. We don't know the details yet, but it's likely that servers refused to send validations precisely because they knew something was wrong and wanted to make sure no server accepted a ledger as fully validated when they couldn't be sure the network would retain and eventually agree on that ledger. So again, if you're confused about what's happening here, theoretically speaking, it could be that a bad actor is trying to intervene, do some shady stuff, and everybody's taking their hands off saying, oh, wait a minute, we gotta pause for a second, something ain't right. One possible failure mode for XPL is if all the validators think something's wrong with the network, all refuse to send any validations. And again, a key beautiful thing there being that you can't have one, or I guess a few bad actors quickly intervening doing bad things, because at this point here, they won't continue on. And then there's no chatter to let the network reconverge. This is the silent network feature. XPL has safeties both to prevent and recover from precisely this scenario. Again, too early to tell, but if I had to guess what happened, it would be something like that. And again, he's the chief architect of the XRP ledger. If you had to name somebody as probably or maybe potentially the maker of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, a lot of people say David Schwartz, Joe Katz here on Twitter might be it. So Vet, who is also a very well-known XPL community member, said, hey, how does a self-recovery mechanism work on a network level? And David said, and I'm liking to read all this. During a consensus round, servers make sure that they don't have nearly certain evidence that the consensus round they are in will not be the majority round that can produce a fully validated ledger. If a server is nearly certain that they are wrong, or in the wrong consensus round, they abandon the round they're in and attempt to join a consensus round from a ledger stream with more weight. A server will never enter a ledger stream that orphans a ledger it believes someone might have seen as fully validated. But if it doesn't see enough validations, it will never become convinced it is definitely on a minority ledger stream. We don't want to abandon a consensus round that might become the majority round, because that could prevent the network from converging if it diverges. And I can sit here probably talking about this for a long time as a lot of discussions continued on. Somebody, for example, asked, what does the network do when it self-heals? Like, did you just build ways for it to do this, or is it something it can spontaneously do, like a sort of AI? Sorry if it sounds dumb, I'm not a programmer, just genuinely curious. Anyway, I've spent a lot of time looking at this, and my conclusion of it all might be, it's emerging tech we're talking about, working with, loving here. Ultimately, not everything will be perfect. And I'd say in reality, it is actually way more important how you quote unquote fix a problem, how the potential issues get resolved rather than not having any at all. The way I see it is, if you're talking about a team, for example, I think it's more important as an outsider to see how they react to it when something bad does happen, how they communicate and things of that sort, rather than whether or not there's ever any issues at all to the public, because, well, as the public, right, you could also just feel as if they never let you know when there is an issue, because there's always issues. With anything out there, there's always issues. If you've ever run a business or you've ever used any tech for that matter, you've had a computer, never had issues in your life, then there's probably an issue in the background you just never noticed. I'm joking. It's true, but I'm joking in the sense that there's always stuff that will go wrong. It's more about how you react to it. And in this case here, I'm liking their open response. Again, we're not sure if they're telling the truth on every level, but it doesn't necessarily matter as long as nothing bad is happening, or could have happened, or should have happened, if you get my drift. And so when I look at these things, I don't necessarily get any negative vibes from it. I don't really get any positive ones. But if I had to make a standpoint, I'd say I'm rather more happy that this came out rather than sad, mostly because you get to see how the team responds. And I can already feel some comments of people saying, oh, you mindless shill, you just love it, you get paid for this. No, I can say bad things. I can say screw XRP, screw Ripple, I want them all to fail. I hope they all get eaten by hyenas. It's all a scam. Nothing's gonna hurt me. I can say whatever I want. It's just my honest reflection, again, as a investor in this sense. And again, understand, I'm also free to sell any single day. If I think all of a sudden my investment is looking worse, I'll probably sell it and tell you in that sense. But ultimately, I just wanted to say I'm not really panicked over something like this. Even with Solana, I personally really didn't mind too much. Again, it's just like saying, oh, no block was found in Bitcoin, which happened multiple times. It's a failure. People like to make that argument that it clearly doesn't work, when in reality, like I just said earlier in the video, ChatGPT went down early today as well, just to name a good example of how such huge companies with huge backing can also go down. Meta has had issues before it went down. You name a company, they've probably gone down. And again, more importantly is how they resolve the issue, how they communicate the issue, rather than not having any issues at all. And I think the market mostly agrees, because if this was a very big deal, the price would have probably been below $1 right now. Because again, a network going down and people not loving it, or being negative towards it, you would have noticed it in the price. But the fact that we're still trading at what, $2.30 or something like that, means for the most part that if you're seeing all this negative news, people are just overreacting. It's maybe scary in the name, but ultimately, I don't think it's really a bad thing. I'm still holding, still excited, still got my trades open as well, not doing too amazing on the short term, but I think given a little bit of time, things will look better. We're just, man, every single crypto is falling recently. If, however, you're also looking at a trade, in this case here, our trades are not beautiful right now, but given some time, I think we'll look beautiful again. But if you also want to trade, there's a link down below to Blofin or WEX. You can probably use both from anywhere in the world. I mean, WEX, I think every single place in the world you can use WEX to trade on, so you might want to check it out. Links are down below. And I'll see you guys again in other crypto videos somewhere later today. And yes, I'm still excited.